All right, let's jump right in. What if I told you that one of the world's oldest sacred texts answers the biggest question of all? Where did this whole universe come from? In two completely opposite ways. And not just in the same book, but right next to each other. That is the incredible mystery we're diving into today, straight from the final chapter of the ancient Indian Ṛgveda. I mean, it's the question, right? It's the most fundamental thing we can possibly ask. And what's wild is that thousands of years ago, these philosophers in ancient India didn't just give one answer. Nope. They gave us two, and they're polar opposites. One is a path of just radical, fearless doubt, and the other, absolute cosmic certainty.
So, meet our two contenders. In one corner, we have the Nāsadīya Sūkta. This one is abstract, it's skeptical, it's basically a philosophical breakdown of reality itself. And in the other corner, you've got the Puruṣa Sūkta, a personal, mythic, and beautiful vision of a universe literally born from a divine being. Two ancient hymns, two totally different paths to the truth.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to set the stage for this ancient philosophical showdown. Then we're going to walk down each path, one by one. First, the mind-bending path of radical doubt, and then the epic path of cosmic certainty. After that, we'll see how these ancient ideas are still making waves today, before we try to figure out what it means to hold two opposing truths at the very same time.
Okay, first, a little bit of context. You got to think of the Ṛgveda not as one single book, but more like a vast, ancient library put together over centuries. And its final chapter, what's called Mandala 10, is the newest part. This is where the whole vibe shifts. The authors pivot from hymns about rituals and gods to just deep, speculative philosophy. It's really the intellectual capstone of the entire collection.
Let's start with what might just be one of the most audacious pieces of poetry ever written, the Nāsadīya Sūkta. This is not your typical creation myth. It's not telling you what happened. Instead, it's a philosophical takedown of the very idea of creation. And right from the very first line, it just shatters our logic. I mean, think about that. If there was no non-being, but also no being, what on earth was there? The poet describes this state before any kind of duality existed. No space, no time, no death, no life. Just an undifferentiated darkness concealed in darkness. Wow. And then, out of this absolute logical void, something stirs. But it's not a god, it's not some personality. It's this impersonal singularity that the text just calls that one. It's described as a self-sustaining force, existing without any cause, breathing without any air.
And this is where it gets really wild. After describing this origin, the poet just hits the brakes and pivots completely to skepticism. They basically ask, who could possibly know any of this for sure? I mean, even the gods can't tell us, because they were created after the universe began. They're just as clueless as we are.
This all leads to an absolutely stunning conclusion. The poet imagines some supreme being, this ultimate cosmic observer, and then delivers the knockout punch. Maybe even that being doesn't know the answer. It's this profound, conscious embrace of ultimate uncertainty. Now here's something that'll give you goosebumps. This ancient idea has a fascinating parallel in modern physics. The hymn's description of a state before being or non-being sounds a lot like the Big Bang singularity. Physicists will tell you that asking what came before the Big Bang is a meaningless question because time itself began at the Big Bang. It's like this ancient poem intuited that very same breakdown in logic. There's actually a philosophical term for this whole approach. This idea of seeking truth by stripping away everything you think you know, by focusing only on what something is not. It's called apophatic theology. It's the negative path, a journey that's built on doubt and deconstruction. Okay, deep breath. We are about to do a complete 180. Because also in Mandala 10, we find the Puruṣa Sūkta, which paints a picture that couldn't be more different. This one is mythic, it's personal, and it is overflowing with certainty. So forget the abstract void. Here, the universe begins with a magnificent being, the Puruṣa, which you can think of as a cosmic man. And this being isn't just in the universe, it is the totality of all reality, past, present, and future. Everything is encompassed within it. So how does creation happen in this version? Well, not from nothing, but through a grand cosmic sacrifice. The gods take this primordial being and dismember him,
and from his body, the entire universe is formed. Now, this isn't seen as some violent act, but as a sacred creative one. The moon comes from his mind, the sun from his eye, the wind from his breath, and the earth from his feet. Literally, all of reality is just a piece of this divine body. And this vision, this idea where everything in the universe is in God, but God is also somehow bigger than the universe, well, it's an incredibly sophisticated theological model, and it has a name, pantheism. Now, it's really important to distinguish this from something you might have heard of called pantheism. Pantheism says the universe is God, period. But panentheism is more nuanced. It says the universe is in God, but God also exists beyond the universe. It's this brilliant solution that allows God to be both everywhere within creation and also transcend it, beyond it. Pretty amazing for a text thousands of years old. Okay, so we've got these two ancient, clashing visions, but what happened to them? I mean, how do they actually function in the world today? This is where their legacy gets both really fascinating and, yeah, a bit controversial. So deep inside the Puruṣa Sūkta, there's this specific verse, and it's the only place in the entire massive Ṛgveda where all four social orders or varnas are mentioned together like this. It directly maps a social hierarchy onto the body of that cosmic man. And because it's so unique, literally appearing nowhere else, many modern scholars have concluded this verse was probably a later addition, an interpolation, if you will. It seems designed to use the spiritual authority of this really beloved hymn to give a kind of theological stamp of approval to an emerging social structure. What's really cool is that in modern India, you can see a clear split in how these hymns are used, and it perfectly reflects their core philosophies. The Puruṣa Sūkta, the affirmative one, is chanted constantly in temples, in rituals. It's the path of karma, of sacred action. It provides a shared framework for life. But the Nāsadīya Sūkta, the skeptical one, you'll never hear it used for blessings. It's studied in philosophy classes, it's used for meditation, it's the path of jnana, of knowledge. It's like the culture decided it needs both, a solid foundation of shared meaning and a wide open horizon of limitless questions. So how in the world do we reconcile these two visions? They're complete opposites. Well, the genius of the Ṛgveda is that it doesn't even try. Instead, it presents them not as a contradiction that needs to be solved, but as two essential, vital parts of one single quest for truth. So let's just lay it all out one last time. You've got the Nāsadīya Sūkta, which is the negative or apophatic path. It seeks truth through doubt, through questioning. Then you have the Puruṣa Sūkta, the positive or cataphatic path. It seeks truth through vision, through myth, through connection. One is all about intellectual humility, the other is about spiritual connection. And that, right there, is the ultimate takeaway. The sheer genius of Mandala 10 is that it creates a philosophical framework that is big enough and strong enough to hold both of these extremes. It suggests that a real search for truth requires both: the intellectual courage to look at the universe and say, I just don't know, and the spiritual vision to look at the universe and see the sacred in everything. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. How can a single spiritual tradition not only tolerate, but actually elevate two such opposite poles of human thought? It seems to suggest that for these first philosophers, the true path wasn't about finding one single final answer. It was about diving headfirst into the questions themselves.